And of course, whenever we do the ceremony, we always get the question, why did we have all these overachievers? Was there something in the water? We know there was nothing in the water. Frankly, it was the parents with the good genes who had the good sense to settle here in Flatbush. So, honorees, thank your parents for a lot of what you've done. One more point. Senator Chuck Schumer once said that Madison gives 2 degrees, an academic degree and a degree in street smarts. And the street smarts has often served all of us very well. So in summary, all our honorees should thank their parents for the good genes and decision to move to Flatbush. A note about the wall selection process, 3 points. They had to attend Madison for at least 75% of their career, achieve sustained excellence in their field, and made a significant contribution to society. It doesn't matter if you're rich and famous, and some of you are, you have to make a significant contribution to society. Today we have an imposing group of 10 Madisonians. Nobel Prize winners Arthur Ashkin and Baruch Blumberg and Sidney Verba have passed on. So we will have of the 7 people, honorees here today. And these people are very impressive. We have Alan Hyman as anesthesiologist and hospital executive leader, Susan Osterweil Weber, Madison teacher, school principal, artist, and philanthropist. Larry Rand, businessman, academician, and politician. Howie Felcher, humanitarian and philanthropist. Janice Siegel, founder of the Manhattan Transfer and Grammy Award singer. Ronald Hagler, one of Madison's greatest basketball players. And Pamela Gray, Hollywood screenwriter and playwright. They came from different classes and pursued different jobs and different careers, but the one common denominator, they all went to Madison. So I will make a few summary comments about everyone's career, and then I will ask them to come up and in their best Madison approach, tell us about what they remember about Madison and their friends and their family and how it contributed to where they are today. So I'm going to start first with Arthur Ashkin. A couple of other points. There'll be no intermission. If you need the facilities, there are students that will direct you. No questions and answers. Please turn off all cell phones. But before I introduce Ashkin, there's an important point I want to make about the Nobel Prize. Madison now has 6 Nobel Prize winners. Number 1 in the world is Bronx High School of Science with 7. Behind Madison with 4 is Stuyvesant. But keep in mind, these are elite schools. They require exams. They take the cream of the crop. If you ask which high school in the world, an ordinary high school, as was said by Harvard, which ordinary high school has the most Nobel Prize winners? The answer is right here, James Madison. 6 Nobel Prize winners. Arthur Ashkin, class of 40. Arthur received the 2018 Nobel Prize in Physics at the age of 96. He was the oldest recipient. At Madison, he was an academic star, president of Arista, second in his class, co-captain of the math team. But he always had an interest in science and always was making experiments while he was at Madison. After a degree from Columbia and a PhD from Cornell, he went to Bell Labs, which is one of the great scientific centers in the world. And while there, he became interested in something called optical tweezers. I won't try to explain it, I can't. But it had a broad medical and industrial applications and led basically to his selection for the Nobel Prize. Arthur was anxious to be here, even at age 96, and he said he'd talk about the science exhibition he was working on when he was back in Madison. Unfortunately, he passed away. So we congratulate Arthur. Baruch Bloomberg, class of 42. He was called Barney Bloomberg, and he won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1976 for his discovery of the hepatitis B virus, which is the leading cause of liver cancer. Indeed, Dr. Chernoff of the Chase Cancer Center said, he prevented more cancer deaths than any person who's ever lived. Barney remained at Madison for 75% of his high school time, for which we claim him. Indeed, in several publications, he fondly refers to Madison. In Wikipedia, he stated, Madison had an amazing faculty, with many having PhDs. Years ago, when asked about Madison in terms of his own career, he said, Madison was my foundation of learning. I had amazing teachers who made us overachieve, and I had exposure to so many brilliant classmates. He taught me to academically reach for the stars. I was lucky to have had this Madison experience. It set me up to achieve for the rest of my life. Bloomberg had many leadership roles outside of medicine, including the first American to be master of a college at Oxford. He was recruited by NASA to become head of one of their institutions, and too many to name. Thank you, Barney, for all you've done for our society. And the last person who passed away was Sidney Verba, class of 49. Sidney was considered one of the world's most prominent political scientists. When he got to Harvard from Madison, he recalled wondering, how could I keep up with all these smart, well-educated students? But within 6 months, he realized that his Madison education gave him the foundation to not only keep up, but to excel. After graduating Harvard with a degree in history and literature, he received a doctorate in politics from Princeton and proceeded to serve on several faculties. A prolific scholar, he wrote 20 books, an endless number of articles, including a political science groundbreaker in 1963. He joined the Harvard faculty in 1973, where he remained for the rest of his life. In a parallel career, Sidney was the longest-serving director of the Harvard Library, one of the great libraries in the world. During his life, he received numerous awards and honors, and one I have to mention is the Johann Skype Prize Award, described as the Nobel Prize in Political Science. So he was a giant in his field and a wonderful representative of Madison. And now we get to the live people who are here today. First is I will call the people in the order of their class. The class of 51, Dr. Alan Hyman has had a dual career as a pioneer in intensive practice and hospital executive leadership. After graduating from Columbia and Albany Medical College, he specialized in pediatrics and later a specialty in anesthesiology. During his tenure, 90% of premature infants in respiratory distress died. And over the next decade, Alan and his colleagues developed ventilation systems that improved the rate of success to 90%. Just think of all the children that he and his team saved. Over the next decade, Alan was involved in many important issues, including the first bill for funding AIDS research. But I think his biggest success may have come in 1993, when Presbyterian Hospital was on the verge of bankruptcy. Alan was appointed Executive Vice President, Chief of Staff, and Medical Director, and through smart financial executive moves, put the hospital back on its feet and finally achieved a merger that resulted in New York Presbyterian Hospital. Today, Columbia has awarded Alan an honorary degree in science and endowed an honorary professorship in anesthesiology in his name. A remarkable dual career. Please welcome Alan Hiner. Stand too close to the microphone. Over there. Speak louder.
Oh, it's this microphone. Okay, it's this microphone.
Yeah, let me just adjust.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. If I seem a bit nervous today, it's because this is the first time I've spoken in public where my grandchildren are present. So they're part of my audience today. I knew my teacher's first name. With only 3 words, call me Ishmael. When I thought about what I could say to you today about my time at Madison, I thought of the first line of Charles Dickens' historical novel, which we also studied, A Tale of Two Cities. Dickens' first line, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. Mel Brooks said it less eloquently, hope for the best, expect the worst. I will be brief about the best of times. Why the best? I was young, 14, and hopeful. Our country just emerged from the war, the strongest, richest, and I thought most noble country in the world. Madison was our neighborhood school. It opened in 1925, and we will celebrate the centenary in 3 more years. Alums, get ready. By the time I entered Madison, every teenager was expected to graduate high school. Prepared and overwhelmed by the large number of students. Madison was so crowded that the classes were divided into 2 sessions. The 2 upper classes began at 8 a.m. and finished about noon. The freshman and sophomore years started at noon and finished about 6. There was overlap at lunchtime, and the lunchroom was packed. Some of us had to stand or sat on the floor while we ate. In class, we often sat 2 in a seat. Now I will get to the worst of times. Because my birthday was in December, I was 3 months too young to begin in September with the rest of my cohort born in 1933. So I started in February with fewer than 100 classmates, but I caught up and graduated with the rest in 1951. 2 historical events shaped my life. The Great Depression, 25 million breadwinners, mostly men, could not find jobs. My father struggled to find work. And the Second World War, millions killed on the battlefield. Some of my friends and I were poor. No car, no phone, no elevator to take us up the 4 flights. But the war was compensated. We were extremely patriotic, and we followed the battlefronts like it was a football game. We were elated when we captured a Pacific island and moved closer to Tokyo. And in Europe, we gained 100 miles, and now we were closer to Berlin. My first day in Madison is embedded in my memory. As I walked through that hallway, I spotted my cousin Jerry. He was a junior with straight A's and very popular, especially with the girls, a quintessential BMOC. He was surrounded by a flock of co-eds. His first words to me, "Why are you wearing a tie?" I wanted to make a good impression. "Take it off. Don't embarrass me." "And what's in that envelope?" "It's $1 for the Parents Association." "Don't be a sucker. Keep it." "And what language are you taking?" I replied almost reflexively, "Spanish." I went on, "Most of my friends are taking Spanish. We heard it was easier than French." By this time, a small crowd had gathered around us because Jerry's words were like pearls. "No, don't take Spanish. Take German." The word German hit me like a blow to my solar plexus. After all, we had just fought the Germans. I wondered if he was joking, thinking he wanted to see my response to such an audacious suggestion. Again, take German. He went on, "Mr. Schwartz," I never learned his first name, "the German teacher is my homeroom teacher, and he's the best teacher in Madison. Jerry was the smartest relative, and I was indebted to him for many lessons he gave me. He taught me, amongst other things, to swim and to understand movies. High Noon became my favorite. That unplanned meeting with Jerry was life-changing. I took German. My German class had only 6 students, and most spoke German at home. Mr. Schwartz not only taught the German language, but culture as well, about German artists, Albrecht Dürer and Hans Holbein, composers Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms, and writers Hiner, Schiller, and Goethe. I could recite much of Goethe's great play, Faust. I still remember, meine Ruhe ist hier, mein Herz ist schwer, ich finde sie immer und immer mehr. I responded to his teaching, getting nearly perfect grades for 6 semesters. In my senior year, I received a message. Mr. Schwartz wants to see you. Mr. Schwartz asked me, Alan, where are you going to college? I replied, Brooklyn. Brooklyn College was the default college. It was convenient, it was excellent, and it was free. No, Alan, you should go to Columbia. He told me, I went to Columbia's Teachers College. It's a great school, but I resisted. It's $600 a year, and it's more than an hour away by subway. And it's an Ivy League school. Not a chance for me to get in. Again, Mr. Schwartz insisted, go to Columbia. At his urging, I applied and got in. And that meeting set me off on a 70-year trajectory at Columbia. Valerie suggested I wear my Columbia tie today to remind me of my connection between my Madison days and Columbia. It all began on my first day at Madison, meeting my cousin Jerry, only by chance. In Yiddish, you would say, beschert. Our school's greatest asset was the excellence of our faculty. Our teachers were the best and the brightest. During the Great Depression, many chose a teaching career because other professions were closed to them. Wall Street and finance firms were not hiring, and medicine and law careers were not likely because of religious bias. My favorite subject was history. Mrs. Kurtz, my history teacher, no name again, no first name, at her first class with us, she wrote on the blackboard, 1453 in large numbers. She emphasized that was the most important year since the Middle Ages. We thought she meant 1492. Why 1453? She explained, in that year, the Ottoman Turks captured Constantinople and blockaded trade between Italy and the Orient. The spice trade stopped, and without spices, food would spoil. But Portugal and Spain in Western Europe discovered new and different routes to India and China. The Portuguese went south around Africa, and the Spanish explorers led by Columbus went west. Mrs. Kurtz taught us over and over again, geography makes history. I remember those words so well. In World War II, America's enemies, Germany and Japan, were separated from us by 2 oceans. Geography makes history. I began with a Charles Dickens quote. Let me end with a quote from the namesake of our school. Madison is not only the framer of our Constitution, but an author of the Federalist Papers. He also gave advice on how to pursue a healthful life. I, an old doctor, find Madison's words particularly poignant and appropriate for this time of year. Madison wrote, let me recommend the best medicine in the world. Take a long journey in a mild season through a pleasant countryside at an easy pace, and you will feel much better for it. Very good advice. This summer, take a long vacation trip. I endorse Madison's words, and you don't need a second opinion. Thank you.
Our second speaker will be Suzanne Osterweil Weber. educator, artist, and philanthropist, described Suzanne's amazing career path. She taught at Madison for 16 years, making her the second member of the Madison team to be so honored. I know that many of her students here who are not here will still be able to hear her speech as we are taping this program. Following Madison, after the 16 years, she took on leadership roles at several high schools, starting with the High School of Art and Design, where she supervised a 60-teacher department. And during her tenure at the school, they won the Rockefeller Brothers Award for the best visual arts program at a secondary school in America. Then, moving on to become principal at Port Richmond High School, the school was named a Blue Ribbon School of Excellence. In short, whatever institution she led became significantly upgraded when she left. In 1997, she retired to pursue her first love of art. Since 2000, she's commissioned over 125 portraits covering the rich and famous to the family down the block. And from a philanthropical point of view, she continues to donate her portraits to the arts, environmental, and health charities. So returning to Madison is an important day for Suzanne. As a former student, teacher, and by the way, she met her husband Mike here. So welcome back, Suzanne.
I can either do this in 5 minutes or in 8 minutes. That's what I was told. Greetings and congratulations to the other Wall of Distinction honorees, their family and friends, Dick Kossoff, the architect of the Wall of Distinction, Marty Alpert, former president of the Alumni Association, who is here in spirit today, Frida Weitz, the former editor of the fantastic alumni newsletter, Jane Carbonaro Arbido and John Rice, the new co-presidents of the Alumni Association, the awesome Alumni Association, which makes events such as this one possible, Principal Jody Green Cohen and members of the administration, and of course, my loving family and friends who are here today to support me because they know how thrilled I am to be here, a mere 2 years and 39 days since the originally scheduled pre-COVID event in 2020. I'm taking a break. As you can read in the little gold booklet, I was elected to the JMHS Wall of Distinction for my work as an artist, educator, and philanthropist. But mercifully, I am not going to talk about that today. Instead, I'm going to tell you how James Madison High School shaped a young person, a pre-middle-aged person, and now a pretty old person for a lifetime journey. There is a rather large chunk of my life I call the Madison years. For some of today's Wall honorees, as well as many other alumni, their post-high school contact with Madison is through the Alumni Association newsletter or an occasional alumni event such as the recent art auction. For me, it has been quite different. I heard raves about Madison from my 2 older cousins before my first encounter with the school at age 7, when my aunt took me to a dress rehearsal of Gilbert and Sullivan's The Gondoliers in the Madison Auditorium. My cousin Gloria had the lead role, along with honoree and future Metropolitan Opera star Elaine Malbin. I was extremely impressed, so much so that when I entered the 5,000 student school as a sophomore from Cunningham Junior High School in 1954, I ran for fourth-term governor so as not to get lost in the crowd. And then I won. You know, what do we do now, like from the candidate? It was then that I met my friend, Irene Bandelik-Sperling, then a senior and vice president of the student organization, and the lady who nominated me for this honor. Thank you very much, Irene. Much appreciated. James Madison High School, as you all know, is not just another school. 97 years old to be exact, named after not just another short president. It was the school that was named after the father of the Constitution. Of course, as a student, I was aware of this, but the importance of Madisonian democracy and the brilliance of the concept of three separate but equal branches of government has never been more crucial to our fragile democracy. The truth is that the 3 years I spent as a student at Madison shaped my entire life. At the age of 17, under the astute and sensitive guidance of my art teacher, Albert Sarney, I chose to apply for a scholarship to the art education program at Pratt Institute and to become an art teacher. He understood that I not only wanted to share my lifelong passion for art with future generations, but also to be able to afford to work as a fine but not starving artist. I remain well-fed to this day. This amazing teacher actually told my mother that I was too sensitive to weather the slings and arrows of the commercial art field. I must have toughened up over the years because being a portrait painter over 40 years later has surely tested my ability to both please clients as well as to maintain my own vision as an artist. In 1963, at the age of 23, after 2 years of teaching special talent art classes at Ditmas Junior High, I was talent scouted to Madison by art chairman Mac Mandel. To say it was surreal to be back as a teacher a mere 6 years after graduating was an understatement. Many of my teachers remembered me and treated me as a colleague and a professional. They were wonderful. A math teacher asked what grade she gave me, and I never spoke to her again. I was not a great math student. In the ensuing 16 years at Madison, I taught nearly every art course from required art to kids who announced on day one they could not draw a straight line, to ceramics, fashion, commercial art, crafts, painting, and major art to kids who were preparing portfolios for high school, art schools in some cases. With 13 solo exhibitions I had and the hundreds of paintings and prints created, I still feel that to have been a teacher is my greatest work of art. To quote philosopher Leo Buscaglia, too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have potential to turn a life around. In addition to teaching art, I was chosen by the legendary Madison administrator, Betty Horn. How many of you remember Betty Horn? Yay, Betty Horn, okay. As college advisor, I worked in the gorgeous college office, which not only had carpeting, but also comfortable chairs. You know, there are no comfortable chairs in schools. And thanks to the generosity of Madison alumni, sports impresario, and former president of the New York Jets, Go Green, Sonny Werblin. In the mid-1970s, under a new Madison administration, along with serving as coordinator of the art department, I had the opportunity to apply leadership lessons, both learned on the job and in administration and supervision education, master's programs. In 1977, in the brand new position of High School Self-Renewal Coordinator. This High School Self-Renewal program was sponsored but not financed by the business community of New York City in a model of their creation. It identified and trained teachers who would work with the entire school community. Teachers, students, parents, auxiliary staff, community and school administration, in order to diagnose and solve problems at the grassroots level and to make recommendations for positive change to the administration. Sometimes they listened and sometimes they didn't. As coordinator of this innovative program, it was exhilarating to be working with teachers across departmental lines, as well as to further connect Madison to the community at large, to Brooklyn College and the New York City Council on the Environment. Among Renewal's many accomplishments, along with institutionalizing the process, was winning New York City's very first Earth Day Award, presented by then Mayor Ed Koch, and having Mayor John Lindsay helicopter to our annual June Carnival. Serving as Renewal coordinator while also running the art department and teaching classes was my launching pad to a dream job in the city's only art high school, the High School of Art and Design in Manhattan. So many of the skills that I learned in Al Sani's class, such as calligraphy, graphic design, layout, screen printing, stood me in good stead over the next 11 years of training practitioners from the commercial art field to work with and train students for careers in manifold art fields. As a student-centered teacher, art advocate, liaison with all school constituencies and the community at large, I very much wanted to apply my philosophy and experience to running an entire school the way I ran my classes, where self-actualization was the ultimate goal. Being appointed as principal of Port Richmond High School on Staten Island in 1990, and then to Monmouth Regional High School in New Jersey, completed the circle, and though I was no longer teaching art classes, I found time to assist art students interested in attending art schools or art programs in universities to prepare portfolios for admission and to support my belief that the arts educate our children in the richness of human nature, help to integrate learnings across the curriculum, and bring joy to their lives. I also know that being a practicing and exhibiting artist for the 36 years that I was also in education inspired and influenced my students and teachers. I was not someone who could not do, but who taught, as some erroneously say, but rather one of those largely unsung practitioners who gave of their knowledge, skills, and hearts to every athlete, architect, doctor, lawyer, nurse, musician, scientist, teacher, and writer. A former student and now friend from the class of 1966 wrote this to me upon learning that I was to be honored today. Break. Regarding your avatar as a famous person who is to be honored at the Madison Wall of Distinction ceremony and will need a speech, I suggest just talking about what you did as an art educator, which was to provide many with the opportunity to realize their potential, and how as an artist you help people to heighten their perception, to see things in a new way while also creating beauty, so that really everyone you've come in contact with is better for having known you. If you subscribed to the Jewish concept of tikkun olam, I'd say that by your actions, you have moved the world in the right direction, which is quite an accomplishment. When I retired from education in 1997, I became a full-time artist specializing in portraiture. This was yet another opportunity to stay connected as well as to give back to the community by donating my portraits to fundraising efforts in the fields of education, health, the environment, and the arts. Since the early 2000s, my portraits have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for these organizations. Then in 2015, I magically reconnected with my Madison classmate, the marvelous Mrs. Marty Alpert, née Weinstein, then Alumni Association president, who sent out a letter to alums to inspire them to contribute a financial award to a graduating senior. I was duly inspired, and I saw it as an opportunity to reconnect with my unique alma mater, a school that has continued to produce leaders in nearly every field of endeavor, including, and I will repeat because it's so fabulous, a greater number of Nobel Prize recipients than any school in the world. Is that amazing? We'll have some applause now. Okay, way to go. Miraculous but true. My annual award to a student or students teaching or the arts or planning to become art teachers, unfortunately, too few, brought my husband and I back, husband Michael, that is your name, to the still beautiful school. It's so beautiful after so many years, but as we all know, a school is hardly just a building. And over the past several years at awards night, I have encountered a beautiful bunch of students of all ethnicities cheering each other on. Of course, the Alumni Association continues to support and celebrate Madison students, and Madison continues to be a school with a bright and talented student body, which, under the leadership of Madison alumna Principal Jody Cohen, continues the great and inspiring tradition of its predecessors. Finally, a resounding thank you to Madison for my husband, Mike Weber, social studies teacher and coordinator of student affairs at Madison for 19 years, who later became principal of Stevenson and Elizabeth High Schools, the two biggest schools, had to have the biggest schools, who I met, worked with, fell in love with, and married 40 years ago. So long live James Madison, a mere 100 years young in 2025, as Mel Brooks would say, and long live the memory and tradition of its illustrious alums. Thank you, James Madison High School, for my deeply nourished roots, and may you sustain your magic for another 100 years.
Our next honoree will be Larry Rand, class of '60. I consider Larry as one of Madison's great triple threat graduates, as an entrepreneur, academician, and a politician. Larry's diverse future might have really been forecast at Madison, where he was editor of The Highway, which is the newspaper, wrote the book for lyrics for his class sing, played baseball, and had a column in the New York Post. Not bad for a kid of 17 years old. Graduating from Brown University with honors, he received a doctorate from NYU, published several books, and has been a visiting professor at Brown. His interest turned to entrepreneurship when he co-founded Kexton Company, a financial public relations firm where he remains today as a senior advisor. He is currently managing director of his own communications company. But he wasn't finished starting new ventures, and he was founder and former chair of the ALS Association, commonly known as the Lou Gehrig's disease. And somehow he finds time to serve on several boards, including hospitals and museums. And last but not least, he extended his leadership skills to be mayor of Rybrook. An amazing, diverse career of entrepreneurship, leadership, and giving back to the world. Welcome to our man for all seasons, Larry Rand, class of '60.
I'm going to need your help. Can you hear me, though? But first and foremost, I want to thank the Alumni Association for having the vision and courage to create this impressive wall to celebrate our school and a number of its graduates who have shared the common bond of having been fortunate enough to be Madisonians. A special thanks to Dick Kossoff and Lou Scheinbaum and others at the Alumni Association and the staff of this institution to make sure that bond is never broken. I also want to thank my brother Rick, another distinguished Madisonian, and his significant other Pat, and my beautiful wife Tina, as well as all of you in the auditorium who took the time away from a lovely June day to come to this event. Thank you. Okay. Here's where it gets a little tough for me because I'm going to get emotional. And as my brother said, you give speeches all the time. Why be emotional? Well, in full disclosure, no one has seen what I have written here today. And that's rare for somebody who writes a lot, with two exceptions, Georgie Girl and Tavi, our golden retrievers. I read this to them, and they were curious as to why I was crying. So I may need your help to get through what I'm about to say. When asked, as most of us routinely are, what school did you attend? My answer, more often than not, is James Madison High School in Brooklyn. I know that's not what most people usually expect me to say. I would have been expected to name some college or university or graduate school. Not in my case. Sure, I could have said I graduated from an Ivy League university and then got my master's and doctorate from another fine institution. But I don't, and here's why. As the years rolled by and I look upon my life, I realized that it was at Madison, not at Brown, not at NYU, that had the most impact upon me. It was at Madison that during my so-called formative years, I got, well, formed. Thinking back, as Alan did, to the late 50s, Madison was far from a nurturing place. We were overpopulated and understaffed. My class size, that's not my school class size, but my individual class size of 40 or more often required the students to double or triple up on bolted down seats. More than once did I end up in the crack in a seating configuration that was designed for 2, but ended up with 3. The class of 1960, along with the classes directly before and after us, made up the first wave of the baby boom. Our generation was spawned by the greatest generation. We were the offspring of those men and women who answered their country's call and were fighting in Europe or in the South Pacific. In brief, we were the children of those being shipped out to war or coming home. We came to being as a result of fear or exhilaration. And we were numerous. Madison, along with its neighbors like Erasmus, Lincoln, and Midwood, was not prepared to cope with the volume of kids who reached high school age in the 50s and 60s. My graduating class had more than 1,500 students. As Jay Olikoff pointed out, we actually had 1,560 students. Our school, Alan, as you know, had 3 separate sessions and we had annexes to boot. In all, our school population was more than 6,000. By reference, Erasmus had more than 8,000. So how was a lonely boy from a broken home and living slightly above the poverty line be expected to succeed in such a large and highly competitive environment? He could only if he developed survival skills and tried to work harder and outcompete his peers. But he also needed luck along with the pluck. Most of all, he needed incredible help. And I should add that it needed to be loving help. I was lucky. Early in my high school career, I was thrown together with a group of very smart, ambitious people, my classmates with whom I had similar interests, academic, athletic, and social. There were Bob Front, Ann Siegel, David Siegel, Bruce Mandel, Stephen Hofflick, Janet Lass, Phyllis Rubin, Madeline Solomon, to name but a few, and of course you, Jay, with your daily jokes. And there was Madeline Leventhal, who years later would become my wife of many years. There were others in my class, including some who were on the wall of distinction. Judy Blum, Judge Judy, Kenny Glassman, and Eli Siegel, for example. Besides my classmates, there were my mentors, teachers who imparted knowledge and wisdom and care. Betty Whitlock, George Capp, Madame Boulanger. Alan, I never did know her first name, nor to my knowledge did anyone else. It was always Madame Boulanger. Here's where it gets tough. But most of all, it was Philip Rodman. Mr. Rodman was a standout. He was different. He was sensitive, intelligent, kindly, and supportive. In today's world, he might be labeled as gay. Who knows? Who cares? He reached out to all of us in his English class and taught us the curriculum and then some. He even encouraged us to cut his class some Wednesday afternoon, take the subway, and go see a matinee on Broadway. Quote, "You can always stand in the back of the theater and they may not even charge you for admission," he said. Bruce and I did just that. I still remember one totally unmemorable show, Duel of Angels, but the production starred Vivian Lee. When we told him of our excursion to Manhattan, he laughed and rightly said, "You will never remember the show, but you can say you saw Vivian Lee on stage." So he got us hooked on the literary arts and made us aware of the magic of live performances. In this and so many ways, he taught us more than to write or read. He taught us not what to think, but how to think. And he taught us to think broadly. One of the legends surrounding Mr. Rodman was that he was an acolyte at Gertrude Stein's Paris Salon. Again, maybe yes, maybe no. Who knows and who cares? It was a myth that suited him well. On one of my very, very bad days, feeling especially down, he said to me, "You will go far in life. In fact, if you were a stock, I would buy it because I would make a lot of money." No one ever said that to me before, and suddenly I felt as though I would have a future. Once more, he was right. For these and so many reasons, large and small, is why Madison is my school. And to be on the wall with so many luminaries, Nobel Prize winners, jurists, politicians, statesmen, writers, actors, singers, is both humbling and daunting. My wife, Tina Smith, curates and sells incredible vintage and exceptional jewelry at her gallery on Newbury Street in Boston. She is also a student of what makes a particular piece of jewelry so valuable. She studies its history and its provenance, and she reminds me often of diamond, ruby, sapphire, emerald, and just rocks that are found in the ground. It's not until they are carefully extracted, impeccably cut, and polished, that if they become a remarkable gem that is worth something. Without putting in the work, the jewel is just a rock. Madison took this uncut and rough stone and carefully and lovingly shaped and polished it. That is how I was formed, and what you see today is the result of many people taking the time to put in the work. I hope I have lived up to their efforts and found worthy of the honor you have bestowed upon me today. Thank you very much.
And he shared his success through several philanthropic ventures, including several at Madison, such as the Howard Felcher Literary Center, a classroom designed for students with learning disabilities. He's also underwritten several other Madison events. For example, the trade school, college, or even starting a business. Other philanthropic interests include Mount Sinai Heart in New York City and Tufts Medical Center. In short, he shared his success in business with others who have been less fortunate. He's selfless in how he never seeks any praise or any publicity, but says it like this: I never want to forget where I came from. Howie Felcher. Come on up. Don't stay too close to the microphone.
First of all, I want to say, when I was in school, I got nominated for nothing. In fact, my mother was up to school so many times, they thought she was a part of the facility. They thought she was part of the facility. And I did have a hard time. And to be selected here today is something that I never had any dream of. I think when you go through life and you only look ahead, you never look back, you don't sometimes realize what you have accomplished in your life. And sometimes it takes other people sometimes to show you that. I was with great students. I had wonderful teachers. Unfortunately, due to the times, learning disabilities were not easily recognized, but discovered later on. I found out that learning is one thing, but thinking is something else. Ironically, it took me 4.5 years to get out of the school, and now they want me back, so I don't understand that. But I don't have as elaborate speech as everybody else, but I do want to thank the alumni, my family for being here, and friends who have come from far away. And Dick, it was quite an honor, and I thank everyone.
A couple of years ago, we wrote an article called Madison Goes to Hollywood. And we produced several pages of people that have not only gone to Hollywood or gone into arts, but excelled. And in the case of music, just think of some of the people that have gone into music, either writing songs or singing them. Academy Award songwriter Al Kasher and his brother Larry, who did Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Barry Mann, opera singer Elaine Malvin, and of course, the inimitable Carole King. To all of these people we hear today, Janet Siegel, who has been an undeniable force in the music world. A 9-time Grammy winner, she's best known as a founding member in 1972 of the highly popular ensemble, the Madison Transfer, which has now stood the test of time and is celebrating its 50th anniversary. Along the way, she launched a second and equally diverse career as a solo artist. Janice continues to sing, tour, produce, and teach. But the main point about Janice is that she's brought considerable joy to the millions who have listened to her songs. So we honor you today, and if you have time, go on YouTube and listen to the Manhattan Transfer do their thing. Please welcome Janice Siegel.
I know how to do this. My fellow inductees, alumni, dear friends, and my beautiful family who is here. It's such an honor to be here at my alma mater, James Madison, in and among such illustrious company. I could never have anticipated my life's path in this world more than I could have anticipated probes on Mars, a global pandemic, messenger RNA vaccines, camera phones, or Lady Gaga getting it on Musically with Tony Bennett. Who could have seen that coming? The journey has been unexpected, wonderfully complex and convoluted, and it began right here in this heavenly little slice of Flatbush. I grew up just down the street, played stoop ball, ringalivio, touch football, and caught fireflies on many a late summer night, right by this very school. From my front porch at 1749 East 26th Street, I could always see the steps of James Madison. It was an ever-present force, physically and psychically, in my life. My mother, Joan, my Aunt Doris, my three brothers, who were all quite accomplished in their individual fields, all attended James Madison High School. It was when I was 12 years old and in the 8th grade at PS 197 that I came into possession of a guitar. And that's the beginning, for a lot of people, of the end. I began a lifelong fascination and love affair with music and its powers of transformation, healing, and harmony. My life changed at that point. Everything escalated when the following year, when James Madison High School English teacher Arnie Wagner took an interest in 3 young girl guitarists who sang harmony, composed music, and had dreams of making it big in the record industry, complete with our striped cranberry danskin tops and our bell bottoms, and of course, our white go-go boots. It was through the management of Mr. Wagner that we got our recording deal with budding producer Richard Perry, who was also a Brooklyn boy from the neighborhood, and why we were able to take meetings and hang out at 14 years old in the famous Brill Building, 1619 Broadway. Little did I know at the time the historical significance of being around all that greatness like Carole King and all that 60s music business activity. Eventually, we cut a record on the Redbird label, and to our amazement, it charted on the WMCA Good Guys chart. Remember that? Our high school crowd listened religiously to Cousin Brucey, also an alumni, on the chance that he would play our 45s. I remember seeing the records at Crawford's on Kings Highway. What a thrill. But still, I did not see music as a career. Throughout high school, music was a sideline and a wonderful hobby, but everything for me was focused and heading straight towards a career in medicine. Advanced bio was my jam. I got the scholarship, I graduated, and was off to college. Not so fast. I started my education in the field of nursing. But after a year, music was still such a forceful presence, and eventually it won out. It was natural for me, it was easy. Music was inside my soul and who I was, so I quit school and recklessly decided to become a singer, for real and true. Upon return to New York one magical night in 1971, a cab was flagged by a musician I was working with. Our conga player was picked up by a cabbie musician named Tim Hauser, the founder of the Manhattan Transfer. I met Tim when Philip dragged him up to our hotel room to meet the band, and that was 51 years ago. The Manhattan Transfer was formed in a small Greenwich Village apartment, and we are still together with a couple of changes, recording, touring, and performing. I'm so aware and grateful that it all started here. A thirst for learning, a curiosity about the world, and an open atmosphere, a strength and confidence to follow my instincts. And of course, many freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior sings, where I first felt the thrill of the big stage and working with an ensemble. All of these qualities were nurtured here. So what is it exactly in the operating system, the ethos, the philosophy of this particular public high school that has produced so many forward-thinking and productive individuals? And as Dick mentioned before, some people have asked, what's in the water here? I believe it was our individual teachers and the pervasive and overriding viewpoint of our school to always do better and to work hard as its own reward. Here are some teachers that still stand out to me in my life. Mr. Morantz. He made physics come alive. The physical world was suddenly no longer the dry dust of the textbook. I started to tentatively sense the connections between the physical structure of the universe and the resonance and vibrations of music and spiritual thought. Mr. Zevin taught sophomore English, and he didn't bat an eye when out of the blue I used my very best Brooklyn British accent to act out a scene from Shakespeare in a class exercise while the rest of the class was droning on and falling asleep. His passion for poetry and words inspired me, and his insistence that we write something every day was right on the mark. I love Shakespeare because of him, and consequently learned to assess, appreciate, and write a well-turned song lyric. Mrs. B. Miles, the girls' dean, French teacher, and mother of my best friend, Dory. Thank God for that, because us hippie smartasses, we got into some trouble. I am so proud to represent James Madison, not only alongside all of the luminaries that are here today, but RBG, Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, Carole King, Chris Rock, Sonny Fox from Wonderama, who I followed into a men's room once to get his autograph. I was only like 8. Okay, just disclaimer there. But alongside my wonderful graduating class, my 21st Street crowd, my dear friend Fran Schumer, and my family, thank you so much again for this wonderful honor.
Our next honoree is Ronald Hagel, class of 71. Basketball has always been the sport at Madison. Even though the football games, Madison versus Erasmus, would get 20,000 people at Ebbets Field. But basketball was the sport, and led by the amazing Jeremy Moskowitz. Listen to these statistics. His teams from 1939 to 40 won 53 out of 54 games, including a streak of 39 games. During his coaching career, he turned out an endless stream of college and professional players. One of the greatest was Rudy LaRusso, an All-American at Dartmouth and starter on the great Los Angeles Laker teams. But today, we induct probably the greatest basketball player in Madison history. Playing under Coach Tony Constantino, he averaged 26 points a game and was named by the Post as the New York City Player of the Year. No Madison player has ever had that honor. By this time, the colleges were knocking down the doors trying to recruit him. And to everyone's surprise, he went to a rigorous academic school, University of Pennsylvania, an Ivy League school. And he often will tell you that his rigorous training at Madison helped him get through there. His basketball record at Penn was absolutely fantastic. He accumulated 1,522 points in his career and was the first recipient of the Ivy League Player of the Year. And that year, Penn won championships in each of his seasons. Today, he's been labeled as one of the greatest players in Ivy League history. After college, he played in some pro leagues. However, armed with a strong degree in English, he's had a long high school teaching and coaching career in Philadelphia. Ron Hagler is today remembered as one of the greatest players in Madison and Penn history. Welcome, Ron Hagler.
It is indeed an honor to be selected to receive a place alongside all the other distinguished recipients on the Wall of Distinction. Back in the late 1960s, when I was a student here, it would usually take me about 90 minutes to get from the Rockaway Avenue L stop in Brownsville to arrive at Kings Highway and then walk to James Madison High School. My timing wasn't always the most accurate, and I received plenty of detentions to prove it. In the 51 years since graduation, I have often thought about that ride on the New York City Transit, taking me from one world to another. While I can't say that I remember all of the names and places, I do remember most of the experiences. Well, what was my motivation to attend James Madison High School? Well, Madison had always had the reputation for academic excellence. In addition, at that time, the boys' basketball team was coached by the legendary Jamie Moskowitz. I never regretted my decision to come to James Madison. There are many who were part of the school community that helped to support and nurture a shy, skinny student trying to find his identity. Two names that stand out are Tony Constantino, who took over as boys' varsity basketball coach when Coach Moskowitz retired, and Mrs. Cohen, my senior English teacher. They taught me many life lessons, including accountability, responsibility, and compassion. During my years at Madison, there are several things that immediately come to my mind. I remember the diversity. It was literally a melting pot of people from different neighborhoods and cultures. That experience allowed me to grow in so many ways. Some of my fondest memories, in addition to what I accomplished on the basketball court, occurred in the library. I remember spending hours being transported via my imagination to different worlds, reading books about interesting people, places, and experiences. Whatever success I have achieved would not have been possible without the encouragement and support of my family. I can still hear my mother's voice waking me up on those cold winter mornings. Ronald, wake up. It's time to go to school. And it was during those times, walking to that L stop, that the dream began to take shape. How can I change my situation? What could I do to improve my circumstances? I would ask myself. I found the answer to those questions at James Madison High School. I'd like to acknowledge a few of my family members who are here in attendance today. My sister Phyllis, who's also a Madison graduate, my cousins, nieces and nephews, and most especially my wife, Denise, who has been at my side for the last 48 years. While it's true that you can't turn back the clock and go back in time, you can and you should pause from time to stop and reflect on the people, the places, and the experiences that enable you to be where you are today. Thank you for providing me with the opportunity to do just that at this awesome event. Thank you all very much.
Our last honoree will be Pamela Grayclass of 73. I said before that in an article called Madison Goes to Hollywood, we had pages and pages of people who have made it big. So Pamela today, a Hollywood screenwriter and playwright, joins an elite group of Madisonians who excelled in the arts. Some of these include Arnie Copelson, Jerry Wald, and Jim Giannopoulos, both studio directors, Irwin Shaw, who wrote The Young Lions and the movie The Young Lions, Bruce Morrow, known as Cousin Brucey, and Sid Ganis, president of the Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and of course, last but not least, Judy Scheidlin, Judge Judy. We should start by saying that her love of writing, plays, and song goes back to Madison, where she was the Sing, Scripts, and Lyrics chair for 3 years. After Madison, she received a BA in English from SUNY Buffalo and an MA in creative writing. Thereafter, she was on her way to winning an Academy of Television Scriptwriting Fellowship, wrote an episode of Star Trek, and first place in the Samuel Goldwyn Writing Award for The Blouse Man, which eventually evolved in the critically acclaimed 1990 film Walk on the Moon. She had a lot of other writing credits, which are too numerous, I won't mention them. She said that her work is drawn to the theme of the ordinary woman overcoming great odds and doing something extraordinary. As a final note, very happily, the musical version of A Walk on the Moon had its East Coast premiere this spring to very, very positive reviews. Pamela's goal is now to get it to Broadway, and as she said, I'm now reclaiming the part of me that thrived at Madison. Welcome, Pamela Gray.
Who nominated me for this and unfortunately is out of town. And when the Alumni Association accepted me for the wall, I had the initial reaction I always have as a writer and as a Jewish girl from Brooklyn. I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it. Oh yes I do, and yes I am. I don't know if I'm the only one in this room who has the recurrent dream about missing the test, forgetting you took a class. Still to this day, some of those nightmares happen at Madison, some happen at college. But anyway, I was the one who did not know today I had to write a speech, so have post-its, will travel. I was unprepared, and I am going to live through this. I was not supposed to go to Madison High School. I was in the Tilden district, and my best friend, Karen Tanklow, who I was just texting to remind me of our favorite English teacher's name in 11th grade, she was going to Madison because her sister went to Madison because everybody knew that Madison was the best high school. And her parents were teachers. My beloved mom, who's here today, was a teacher, and somehow they pulled strings that probably were not legal to get us to go to the school out of the district. One of the reasons that I was so thrilled to get this honor is because it wasn't really about, oh, I'm on the wall, but it validates my really deep belief that Madison is the reason I'm the person I am today. That I was so shaped by this experience. And I'm often the one in a group of people who says something unpopular, which is, I loved high school. And I have to tell you, not many people who didn't go to Madison say that. And, but I did. And I think fondly of this experience, and really this award or recognition got me to think about some of the specific ways I became who I am. And I agree with what Janice said and what Susan said. The teachers here were extraordinary. And Robert Greenman was, I think he was my 9th grade English teacher. And from him, I got my love for mythology. And I actually wound up taking classical mythology classes in college. And now when I teach screenwriting, there's a popular way to teach it, which is to look at mythology and track your characters as if they're on a journey, a hero's journey, or in my world, a heroine's journey. And I'm still drawing on the myths and legends that he inspired me to think about. Bob Anker, Robert Anker, was my creative writing teacher, and I adored him. And he was one of many Madison teachers who just encouraged creativity. Just write what you feel like writing, and found inspiring ways to make us do that. And I really don't have memories of any teachers stifling me here. I really, the experience was to open up. And that was also followed by the wonderful Beverly Cooper, who I'm so sad I never got to see her after I grew up. She taught a class named Literature of the Theater, and it wasn't only getting us to understand and read plays, but to make connections between what was in art and what was in our lives. And again, if I look back at all the pieces, this was leading me towards the path I wound up on. Millie Glaberman, who was my ceramics teacher, was the first person, again, who inspired me to try a different form. And I was very proud of the chess set I made in that class. And my father wrote me a $1,000 check to not give it to a boy I had a crush on. I should have taken the check. And then, of course, Chet Fulmer, who was legendary. I don't even think I took his class, but he was this inspirational figure. We all joke that he looked like God. You know, all this white hair, white beard, booming voice, and he was the one who was in charge of the yearbook, and I was the log editor, which was, I'm going to leave Sing for a minute, but really this experience of collaboration, which was so thrilling. It wasn't, well, it was the combination that I was the boss and there was collaboration. I was the co-editor with Nancy Kowalik, who also has a career in film and theater that started here. But we were on our own, and this was a theme throughout Madison. Express yourself, empower yourself. We're here, but do it the way you want to do it. And those, sadly, smoke-filled meetings in Chet Fulmer's office with the log editors and comparing the photographs and the writing and trying to cover every teacher in every department. And I'm sorry to say I wasn't that good with the sports section, but that's why we had a sports editor for the yearbook. And it just, to be creative in a room with other people was so intoxicating and inspiring. And it's still something I love and don't get to do that much as a screenwriter, where pajamas writing, but any opportunities for collaboration bring me back to Madison. By the way, the first play I ever wrote was called A Log Day's Journey into Night, about pulling log all-nighters with my team, staying up hours and hours. And these, remember, no computers. I learned with Nancy Kwala, cut and paste. And every page of that yearbook was cut and pasted. And which actually is a very good skill to this day. I make very nice invitations, and they're not on a computer. But the biggest inspiration in my life was singing. And I saw sing before I went to Madison. It was somebody's older sister, older brother, and I couldn't believe I was seeing theater that was created by students. And my mom got me to fall in love with theater when I was little. She took me, my first show was The Mikado, and then we went to Fiddler on the Roof and then La Mancha, and I just loved show music so much that I was bullied in 5th grade because I was showing off that I had gotten the King and I soundtrack for my birthday, and everyone was calling me a square and throwing things at me. And my mother, I just reminded her of the story, she was so upset that she went to Woolworths and asked the woman, what's a popular rock and roll song today? And she came back with the 45 of Red Rubber Ball by The Circle and said, maybe this is the kind of music you want to like. I mean, I eventually grew into some of that. It went from The Circle to Carole King, but I never lost the show music bug. And sing, for those of you who weren't involved, you were writing lyrics to established Broadway musicals. And, you know, we had an orchestrator and we had someone leading a band, but we were taking established songs and putting our own lyrics to them to match whatever theme we had in Sing. But Sing was, you know, we would get the topics in June, and we would be working on this until we performed in November. And again, it was this collaboration and laughing together and inside jokes and terrible fights. Even then I was fighting with directors about changing my work. But, you know, when I describe Sing to people who didn't go to Brooklyn high schools, they can't even visualize it. And I've taken peeks on YouTube. I mean, now there's video and, you know, there's Sing, if it still exists, is high tech. But for young people who love to write and create and act and do art, and all of us came together, it was so thrilling. And that's what I loved about it the most. But something else happened for me in this auditorium. So I wrote Sing sophomore, junior, and senior year. And we won as juniors, and I still show off about that. But I was sitting somewhere in this section, like 4th row from the back, and listening to people laugh at my jokes. The same stuff I had written in my Brooklyn bedroom was now coming out of the mouths of actors. Or people were applauding the lyrics I'd written, and it was this strange, like, oh my God, what I do for love can affect and enchant other people. And our script and lyrics won every year. But so it was that combination of just realizing there was a connection to an audience, that I had that potential in me, and also that I wanted to keep creating art with other people. The one thing that we didn't get in Madison, at least if we did, I didn't know what room you went to, there was no guidance counselor who sat down and said, you love musical theater, you want to be Stephen Sondheim when you grow up, this is how you do it. So I majored in English, which was not, you know, the booby prize, and I became a poet, and I did continue to do other kinds of creative writing on the side. But Madison was still with me, and it wasn't only about being creative, but about feeling, again, back in that room with Chet Fulmer saying, I'm here if you need me, do what you want. The self-empowerment, and just feeling inside that I had the right to create and that I had the ability to create and that I could make my own decisions in the world of art. I had an English teacher here, I'm pretty sure his name was Mr. Berger, and he was the person who introduced us to contemporary poetry. And I started writing poetry in his class, trying to imitate the Imagist poets. And again, all the pieces go back to being in these classrooms and feeling, just this spark. And I do, like others have said, I don't look back on the college years. I look back on here when I think of where it all started. One of the things, because I wasn't told how to grow up to be Stephen Sondheim, is my first work was as a teacher, influenced by my mom, but also influenced by how much I love the teachers here. And to this day, on the side, when I have time, I teach at a screenwriters lab for women over 40 that was still being funded by Meryl Streep. I taught at one point poetry in the schools for 6th graders. In every type of teaching I do, it's about teaching like the Madison High School teachers did. It's create, don't worry about spelling, grammar, just go with your heart, go with your mind, do what you want, we'll fix it later. And no one was saying, I didn't hear the doors close until my first college poetry writing class. And also, he was a Pulitzer Prize winning poet, and he announced after one of my poems that women's lives were not an appropriate subject for poetry. And after that, I never took another class in an English department, another writing class in an English department again. I started teaching. I went to SUNY Buffalo, which was about as cool as Madison, and I could get credit for being a teacher. So I taught women's poetry writing classes and never stopped. But again, it was so paradoxical compared to what I had here. I want to tell one Madison story where all these pieces of Madison came together. In 2003, I had just come off of having my first 2 movies in 1999, A Walk on the Moon, A Music of the Heart. And I was getting a lot of work and a lot of attention. And these producers, these theater producers, who had produced Mamma Mia, were looking for a writer to figure out how to make a theatrical show, not a jukebox show where it's just the music, but could you take Carole King's music and find a way to create a fictional story? And of course, the first thing I told them was, well, Carole King went to my high school, and I had to come up with a way to do this, and in the interim, they said, you should go and see one of our shows. So one of the producers gave me tickets for Mamma Mia. I was already in town for the 30-year Madison High School reunion. So I was with 2 of my besties, Karen Tanklow and Kim Wallen. And we also knew that one of the stars of our scenes, Sandy Rosenberg, was in Mamma Mia. And very sadly, Sandy passed a couple of years ago. She was a comedian and a singer and a star. We always put her in Sing. So, senior year of Madison, our topic for Sing was painting. And the way we constructed the show is we would have a skit, and the skit would be made up of characters that were in famous paintings. So like the Dutch masters. Our backdrop were a series of stained glass windows. We had the Mona Lisa, and we had a Degas painting recreated by Madison artists, and we had, what was the other one? I'm forgetting it. But Sandy had been in the Degas painting. She played a klutzy ballerina who was ruining the dance. But we also had a scene where she was Mona Lisa's mother. mother. And she was going to bring her to Leonardo da Vinci and hide the fact that her daughter was actually a prostitute. Okay, it was Sing. And she wore this black, widow's outfit while she sang to Leonardo da Vinci about her wonderful angelic daughter. So here we are, 30 years later, I'm with my friends, Mamma Mia starts, the opening scene, and there is Sandy Rosenberg wearing the same exact outfit she wore in Sing. She had been cast as an Italian widow. We were hysterical. People were like, why are these three women on the floor laughing? But what the story just tells me is Sing and Madison, those were our points of reference. We're there 30 years later and we are reliving the joy of being here, especially being in this auditorium. The other story I'll end with is something that happened 2 days ago. My musical version of A Walk on the Moon had closed in New Jersey, and 2 days ago, almost to the hour, I was sitting in a room in Manhattan with my producers, strategizing how we're going to get to Broadway. And I knew I was coming here 2 days later, and to this auditorium. And whether we get to Broadway or not, the fact that I would even be thinking that, and thinking it could happen, or that I could be at this point where it's a conversation, is because of here. And so I thank you so much for reminding me of why I love Madison so much, and for acknowledging that it's a part of who I am, a big part. Thank you.
There's the honorees, and we have two more quick speakers. The first is attorney Jane Carbonero Abaito, who is the co-president of the Madison Alumni Association. She's a rah-rah lady. Come on up, Jane. And she's bringing the other co-president, John Rice.
The honorees. Thank you to Dick and the committee for putting this all together. Thank you to Marty, who's unfortunately not here today, but who's been an instrumental part in helping to put this all together. And thank you to Principal Jody Cohen for really bringing it all home today. So I've been back to Madison numerous times since I graduated in '86. John has also. John's an '83 graduate. And I have not been on this stage since I graduated in '86 with Sing. So I can't sing at all. And that was the beauty of Sing, was that you didn't have to really know how to sing, but you got the camaraderie and the friendships that were made during Sing were amazing. Okay, enough of that. As you all spoke, as all your honorees spoke, each one of your speeches has hit home with me, us, on a variety of different levels. Mr. Rand, yours in particular, you had me in tears here.
I had to run out for tissues.
John ran out for tissues. Really beautiful. Full circle, right? So my dad was a coach and a phys ed teacher at John Jay High School in Park Slope, 30 years. And I grew up with what you talked about, watching my dad coach those players and mentor them. I grew up seeing that live. On his level, it was a matter of life and death in some circumstances because of where those kids came from. Bringing us back to today, you can all consider yourselves part of our family. You honorees, please don't disappear on us. We love you. We need you. We want you to be part of our membership. Come to our events when you hear about them. We're going to do reach out for you. You're part of our community, our family. We need you to help us thrive, which we're doing. We are thriving. We are thriving. We're giving out $57,000 in scholarships to seniors this year for a variety of different reasons, anything from the arts to academics. And we owe that in large part to our donors, our members and our donors. So please, be active, ask us what you can do to help. Hearing your stories today were inspirational, all of them, every single one of them on a common level to differing levels were very, very inspirational. I wish the staff and more students, staff and students, could have hear live what you had to say, because it really was beautiful. Every single one of you offered a lot that we can all really listen to and learn from. So thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Is the amazing mention is the first Madison principal to have graduated from Madison. Go ahead.
I don't even know what to say at this point. Sitting here, Jane, you stole a lot of my thunder, but Jane has been a personal friend of mine since high school, and now we're neighbors, and I think that just evidences what Madison is all about. My mom, an alum of Madison, is sitting right there. Love you, Mom, thank you. And hearing your speeches, I was jotting down some notes. Forward thinking, gems, what's in the water, reputation of academic excellence, support and nurture. I love this high school and creativity. If you get a moment before you leave, look around the building. I had the honor of touring some family members to see what we have. 9 years ago, when I had the honor of becoming the principal of Madison, I sat in my office with another alum, Bill Dumont, who's now our athletic director, and we said, we want to make this school like a suburban high school. And it is due to the support and the strength that we carry with us each and every day from the alums. Today, I have the honor of sharing something that was given to me to honor one of our new honorees. Someone in the back has something for me? Okay, I lost them. A student was supposed to be, there it is. What grade are you in?
I'm a junior.
Say hi.
Hello.
Can you hold this for me? So earlier this week, I received a phone call from a woman who's actually known me since I was probably about 8. Because I grew up on the block with one of her husband's best friends. And she said, I would personally like to make a donation that you can use to benefit the school. Carol Felcher, thank you. In honor of her husband, one of our honorees today, Carol is giving $20,000 to the James Madison High School PTA. And by the way, Howard did not know about this until just now. So, I'm going to make you a little bit more embarrassed, okay? So when you said, do it as you'd like to, I did a lot of thinking and a lot of remembering. Howard, of all the things you've shared with me, and of all the passions that you have, and what Madison has meant to you. Not only have you given strength to our literacy program by donating for a literacy room to help our learners who've struggled, but now, thanks to your life, for the next 4 years, starting in September, we're going to honor underclassmen with $250 gift certificates for improvement in literacy, an English language learner who grows all around, an individual who represents school spirit, an individual who represents citizenship, and last but not least, a basketball player, one from varsity boys, one from junior varsity boys, varsity girls, and junior varsity girls, who either had or has an IEP, who has shown growth. Thank you for truly helping to leave your mark in our community, and thank you everyone today. And I invite each and every one of you back to get to know our students, to share your experiences, so that they can learn and grow from you, as you've allowed me to, and inspired me to be a better principal. Have a good afternoon, everyone.